I'd like to call this meeting to order. Could we do the roll call, please, sir?
All right. Good evening, members of the committee. Let's do the roll call. Member Gotzik? Here. Schaefer? Here. Deacon? Here. Nusma? Here. Judice? Here. Suffredin?
Here.
Gray? Here. Vic? Here. Rodgers? Here. Kelly?
We have a quorum. We don't have any council or committee members seeking remote participation, so we can skip the approval of virtual committee member participation. That brings us to Economic Development Manager Communications.
Thank you. You'll notice that with the chair's encouragement, we've changed the format of our agenda, so just making you aware of that. In future meetings, you'll see a different format for our communications. My teammate Neil Reeves and I are going to be working on some new communications tool. I wanted to point out really briefly that we made an adjustment from last month based on some CoStar data. They had a, not to get too detailed here, but they had a change in the way that they present their data, so we had to make some adjustments. And I really want to point something out. We have an overall retail vacancy rate in the city of 4%, with downtown showing up kind of twice as high as the city as a whole. So that's, but not bad, right? 7% compared to where we were, post-COVID. So I just want to point that out. We're not as in rough a shape as we have been in the past. And I know people don't want to believe this data, but this is pretty solid. So Neil and I are going to field test it, and we'll present the information a little bit of a different way, including adding the other SSAs, other business districts, so we can compare and contrast. So that's the data. Office is still a challenge for us. We're looking at around a 20% vacancy rate in downtown Evanston, and that continues to be a struggle. If there aren't any questions, I'd like to move on to what happened here, to the next part of the agenda.
All right. Is there, I don't know if we had a sign sheet. Is anybody seeking to make public comment?
I signed up online. It's okay.
Yeah, come on up. I mean, anybody else? Is there, or do we had online sign up and? Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah, there's nobody in person that signed up, and I believe we have just the two in person.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's my comment. Oh, thanks.
All right, cool. You got 3 minutes, Kelly.
Sounds good. Hello, members of the EDC. Thank you, everyone, for being here and your participation on the committee. I'm Kelly Mack, owner of Mack's Biking Goods and co-founder of the recently formed Evanston Small Business Coalition. To start, I'd like to quickly recap my top 3 favorite small business moments since the last EDC meeting. The opening of Burl Restaurant by Rachel and Tom Carlin. If you haven't already made it over there, I hope you come with an empty belly and are ready to be treated. Palm House. They graciously donated their space to another group I am part of to host an essential forum last week that was attended by hundreds, and I would be remiss to not publicly thank them for sharing their space. Ward 8. What took me so long to get here? The space was packed on a Thursday night, filled with live music and friendly people. The owner, who I thought was just a server, Jeremy, was so kind and welcoming, and I'm so grateful. I found myself here and can't wait to be back. On tonight's agenda, this committee will consider the 2026 work plan. I'm here to ask that consideration be made by this committee to include the following as immediate action for that plan. 1, showcase Evanston's independent businesses and restaurants daily as a core strength beginning now, and share who at the city level is responsible for updating those platforms to help create transparency amongst the business owners. How can we do ask number 1? I think we can begin this immediately by better utilizing the social media platforms that we already have in place, like Instagram's Enjoy Evanston account, while partnering, or in terms of Instagram, collaborating with other accounts, SSAs, and businesses with social media accounts. More recently, I have seen this feature being used on that account, and I'm sure it is resulting in higher engagement for all stakeholders. As our city council voted on last month, the economic development goal is to, quote, strengthen economic vitality and fiscal sustainability by promoting responsible development of commercial and business districts through recruiting, supporting, and retaining local businesses. When I read that goal, I see 2/3 of that goal as being dedicated to making sure the businesses that are already here can stay and prosper. To help support with this goal, we don't have to wait weeks, months, or even years to build up our social media presence and showcase our small businesses, the owners, or even the community of people who are out there supporting them. We can do this now. I'm asking that this objective be reconsidered to be immediately part of the immediate actions and core maintenance of the 2026 work plan. How can we do ask number 2? I'm hopeful that someone tonight can share who currently operates the Enjoy Evanston platforms, the Instagram, the website, and how business owners can get in touch with that person to collaborate. If that information can be shared, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm submitting to the committee a record of my comment here, along with the signatures of 23 other Evanston business owners who support my comment on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. And you know the answer to that question?
I do.
Okay, we'll get you the answer. All right, if you just state your name and you got 3 minutes.
Hey everyone, I'm Rob Keating. I'm a Ninth Ward resident and I'm the communications chair of Evanston Transit Alliance. As a graduate student in transportation planning, I just wanted to chime in about parking. Free parking periods can be an example of what's called a perverse incentive. It sounds great in theory, but turnover decreases, people circle around blocks looking for open spots, increasing emissions, congestion, and distracted driving. And most important to me, if you want or have to ride the bus, you'd still have to pay for your trip, meaning we could be indirectly penalizing transit use. The book, The High Cost of Free Parking, explores the subject in detail and provides lots of data in support of different strategies we could consider, like dynamic pricing for on-street parking based on real-time demand, as well as designating revenue from parking fees into a dedicated pot for streetscape improvements, transit, and bike infrastructure. For me, the biggest barrier to visiting downtown Evanston and other business districts is the lack of safe, concrete-protected bike lanes, but also bus routes which aren't direct, which stop running as early as 7 or 8 p.m., or don't operate at all on Sundays. Our newly adopted comprehensive plan recommends studying a free circulator bus to connect our downtown neighborhoods and other business districts. I ran some quick numbers, and based on the $94,000 cost to the city from the 1 month of 2-hour free parking offered during December, you could cover the annual operating expenses for a free circulator bus service for less than extending 2-hour free parking year-round, based off figures from Niles and Rosemont, who also offer free circulator bus services. So if we want to encourage trips to our business districts, as we all do, let's consider all our different options, our households with no or limited car access, our CARP commitments to reduce transportation emissions, and how we could best utilize limited dollars, such as for sustainable, equitable options like a free circulator bus, which everyone in our community could utilize and benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please add Committee Member Plant, Committee Member Burns to the roll. Is there anybody else seeking public comment? If not, we will move on to approval of the minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting from January 28th. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd move the approval of the minutes from the Economic Development Committee meeting of January 28th.
I will second with a request that those minutes reflect that Councilmember Sufferton was the chair of that meeting.
All right. With that one clarification, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the minutes have passed. That brings us to items for discussion. Next up is or items for consideration, the adoption of the 2026 Economic Development Committee Work Plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, let's do a roll call on that one.
You don't want to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, I have something prepared if you want.
No, it's the chair's. I'll say something quick. It's the chair's decision if he wants you to say anything, but I'll just say something real quick.
Sure.
I just wanted to say this is, of course, a continuation of the work plan discussion that we've been having. Appreciate everybody who participated in it. As it says in the packet, but I just want to highlight this for committee members and for anybody who wasn't able to look at the work plan yet. All the ideas that you see, the recommendations came from feedback that we received from this body, from Evanston Thrives, and from surveying business owners in the community. And then we took all that together, and tried to understand which one had more mentions, I think is the word that you use in there, but which one had was mentioned more or was more favorited to come up with this list that you see. And so there's a chart or at the bottom where you'll see that there are some that have high mentions, and so they're listed higher, but also I believe some that the economic development team felt like we were in a position to act on now. And so in my mind, if there was anything that we wanted to, like if we want to modify the priority list and what we attack first, that's something that if the chair wanted us to do today at a future meeting, we could do, or we could adopt it as is. But I just wanted to kind of remind the body and the community in particular kind of how we got here.
Is that you, Catherine?
Yes, that is me. I simply had a question about who's going to own the tactical implementation of that. Who on the team is actually in charge of implementing the plan?
Sure. There's a small team of economic development professionals. So we're all in the room now, and what we're planning to do, some of this is already underway, right? Like at the last city council meeting, there was approval of a pop-up program, and right. So some of this is already underway. And our plan is to, in that communications piece at the start of the meeting, at every meeting, we're going to give you an update. And not going to read through every line, but we're going to give you the high-level updates. But with that said, we're expecting to be your partner as well. So the implementation piece is our responsibility as staff, but we would need our SSA partners and chamber partners as well to help us.
Absolutely. No, I'm really excited about the plan. There's a lot on it that I hit the like button on myself, and so at this point I'm just eager to see it implemented and stand ready to be a partner on it.
Right. I do want to stress, when we're looking at the timelines, 6 to 12, 7, the year is going to fly by, guys, right? Like, so we're going to be trying to attack all of these as soon as possible. But just to be realistic, some of these are going to require maybe a conversation with the city council in a very difficult budget season coming up. Are we really going to add another staff member, or can we come up with other ways of addressing the need? So that's going to take a little more time. Thinking of additional financial incentives. Right now, we basically have zero. We have a very small amount. So things like that will take time. But I do want to stress there's a specific business owner before me that we're going to this is the 2026 work plan. The idea here is to see as much of it done as possible in 2026.
Can I make a comment?
Join the committee.
You have to come to the microphone.
If you were on the committee, you could make 5 minutes of comment.
I don't know when this table was last updated. When I read it on Monday, it wasn't this long. So to be fair, the one that I'm looking at right now, I didn't check it today from the packet.
Yes, well, I'm impressed that you were diligent and read it.
I do read them.
Yes, there was. I had a conversation with Councilmember Burns about it, and we had left off some of the data, so I added that Monday morning.
Okay, so I did read it over the weekend, and then I
Thank
did
you.
hold a small business owners meeting yesterday, and that's where the 23 signatures came based off of me showing the economic development packet that was provided. I think Friday was the update that maybe the agenda came
Yes.
out in the packet.
Thursday night.
So that's where I printed it then and read it over the weekend. So I haven't reviewed this table on behalf of that group or myself. So I still, first glance, see an immediate action for clearly, how are we as a city getting into our businesses or using social media in a really thoughtful way? Because it is free, it is cheap. There are business owners who want to do that. And when I look at Enjoy Evanston, to be honest, I think in the past month, I see more posts and I see more engagement. So somebody is doing the work, and I think that is working. It seems very focused on arts and the Dempster. Oh my God, Maggie Pang is spearheading it with the Dempster Design Row. So those pieces I think are just missing. And what led me also to think more about that was, if you scroll down, I don't know if it's still the CTA piece is still on there, like investing in CTA marketing with Enjoy Evanston. It was like the last, oh, see, it's different. I don't have my printout, I'm sorry. Yeah, execute transit-based, yes, that piece. I would hate for our city to invest in transit-based marketing, directing people to a site that truthfully is outdated, and I don't know the last time it was updated. I shared in September of 2024 that Max Bike and Goods address was wrong. It's still wrong, okay. It's at our first location.
What website is that?
Enjoy Evanston. Temperance is still listed as a brewery when you click where to drink in Evanston. So I would hate for our city to spend money on a tool that is not accurate. And I don't know who's operating that tool. And we want to be partners with you. And there's money going into it. And we have really creative people here. But I could not sit at home tonight and not say these things, you know? So this table is different than the one I reviewed. I'm happy to sit and be quiet and review it. But
It's the same, it just has more information.
yeah, there's more in it.
Yeah,
The other one was half my page when I printed it. So when you pulled that up, I was like, oh,
Right.
that's different.
Okay, so when you first started the conversation about Enjoy Evanston, I was going to be proud to respond that we're managing it, but with that second half of what you said, saying it doesn't have updates, and that's a workload issue. We can take care of that. So we just need to take a look at it and make some updates.
Yeah, I think it can be really great. We all probably see other towns and cities have places like Enjoy Dubuque, Enjoy Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and those sites and things really do help visitors, and I think that it can be a really great tool. And I'm happy to be your partner and help spot check things and reach out to business owners and collaborate. I don't know what else to say other than the tool isn't there yet. But it will be if we want it to be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Councilmember Newsome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I understand that we ended up with this list in front of us based on a process and some numerical scores, but I do want to acknowledge Kelly's suggestion, and is there a way we could incorporate her first requirement or her first request to showcase Evanston's independent businesses and restaurants daily as a core strength beginning now? Can we fit that in either to Section 6, which is branding and marketing, or Section 8, which is supporting small businesses? Question
Yeah, I
for
would-
staff and other members of the
So
committee.
just to be clear, that's embedded in our daily mission.
In there.
Yeah, so I'm not sure specifically. I would need more direction. If that particular item was listed as a 1, because one person mentioned it during our process, that doesn't mean that we're putting a low priority on it, because literally we only exist to support and help retain our unique local businesses. So if that's not clear in this, that's disappointing to hear. I mean, the whole reason we exist and this whole process was underway was because of that. So if I could have more clear direction on specifically where you would want a statement like that,
Yeah,
because it's
Can I throw out a suggestion? This is a living document.
Yes.
Why don't we just have a standing item on our agenda for modifications, and that'll allow time to get it right, and we'll just have that be on or I don't know if we have to do it every meeting, but why don't we adopt this and then that doesn't sound like a massive change, that's just a clarification.
Right. I appreciate that, and I think that's probably an approach. Really what I would do is just make that our key purpose. The mission of this work plan is that. That's why we exist.
Yeah, do the city well is kind of like our overarching council goal. So I think that's kind of falls in that same category. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you. Yeah, I was essentially the same thing. I think it's just a matter of keep updating this, and it seems like that's not necessarily the goal, but just something that needs to happen. And I also want to mention the ELBA, Evanston Legacy Business Alliance. There is a Facebook page and a website, and that is up. I think that's Carl Klein and maybe Katie. Are you that you can contact to for legacy businesses, and I think that's pretty current. So that's another place that showcases our cherished small businesses. Thank you.
Councilmember Burns?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that the transit, marketing on transit idea was one that I put forward into the process. And as I've thought about it, it's probably the idea I'm most excited about just because of missed opportunity. But when I think about that, you can't think about that idea or social media without thinking about Enjoy Evanston. Because Enjoy Evanston is the way that we can, that's the thing that we will market on the platforms. That's the thing that we will market on social media. And so when I think about that idea or social media, I absolutely think about Enjoy Evanston and the fact that we have to figure out how to, there's some things in the city, and I can't say Enjoy Evanston is that yet, that we allocate little to no staff support for it, but it's important to us. And that's not a staff thing. Sometimes when we say that, the staff is like, well, we're trying our best or we're doing it. I don't want them to even feel like they need to do anything different. Sometimes it's just we're not putting enough resources towards it. And that doesn't always mean like another FTE, but just I think as a body and as a staff, as a city management office, we just, if Enjoy Evanston is important to us, we need to put enough resources to make sure that we can get information out, that things are updated on a regular basis, et cetera. And so I want to make sure, I think we all want to make sure that economic development team has the support to do that, or else those things won't work as well as we want them to. So I just wanted you to hear that from me. Thank you.
Catherine, do you have your light on again?
Yeah, thanks. I was going to just say that I can think of immediately at least 2 very affordable ways to contract out social media for this account, and several more less affordable ways, but still probably not outside of, like, I don't do our social media, and it's really, really good. So talk to me about who does our social media.
Councilmember Kelly, do you have your light on again, or is that old?
I just wanted to, did you get, who would folks contact for this? Like if they wanted to add something?
Yeah, so we have 2 staff members that are highly focused on the newsletter, and that's Joelle Daly and Katie Bowden.
Okay, with that, why don't you call the roll?
Okay.
Or we just do a voice vote, right? Let's just do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously, and that brings us to items for discussion. The TIF districts discussion. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd move item 7A, TIF discussion. This is an item for discussion only.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. For those of us on finance and budget, this will be a repeat. Do you want to do it the same way? Do your presentation, then we go from there?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Or like a preference? Should we have Paul do his thing?
I would like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will do a modified version of it, just you'll get enough of it. We had, I think, a 45-minute to an hour-long discussion.
Yeah, I don't want it to go that long.
We can't, I don't think we can do that tonight.
This is really a finance and budget discussion, but the input from this committee would be important as well.
Thank you.
But it really is high level. So I'll turn it over to you and let you.
Thank you. This discussion came about as a result of a referral. There were 2 referrals. One was from Councilmember Rodgers to talk about TIF funding guidelines, along with that being kind of defining how we analyze TIF and how we award TIF, just in simple terms. Staff has a way of doing it, but there seems to be some desire to have kind of a process that maybe appears more transparent or has defined.
So I just want to
Defined
stop in here
framework
and say
up front.
that is what this committee will be talking about through a different referral.
Okay.
This is a high-level referral on how TIFs are developed, how we use them, should they maintain.
Right, that was my next.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going straight off of the memo. So then there was a second referral, thank you for clarifying it, and that's what we'll mostly focus on, is from Councilmember Davis, which was, should we literally dissolve the TIFs, like stop using TIF, right? And that is forcing a conversation around really how much time are left on the TIFs, how much time is left on the TIFs, what projects do we have lined up to be funded with TIF, and what's the impact of closing the TIFs, both on economic development goals and things that we are going to fund through the Evanston Thrives program or other kinds of housing initiatives that perhaps were approved, like the West Evanston plan was approved 20 years ago approximately, and the TIF was designed to support that. So those are the kinds of things that we're asking the committees and the council ultimately to figure out. And one of the conversations, and I don't think we need to get into this tonight, it was about like porting funds, like porting from one TIF to another. Those are not the types of things we want to talk about tonight. That'll come at a later conversation. In essence, or in summary, we have 5 active TIFs. One, the oldest is Howard Ridge. It's going to expire in 2028. And the newest is the 5/5. Its expiration date is 2045. You can also, for those that don't know, you can Google Evanston TIF, and this information is on the page with maps, the original ordinances, and the redevelopment plans. And these redevelopment plans, by the way, just again for transparency and communication, these are the formats that the state of Illinois requires for TIFs. It's not something that the city does with a consultant just in our own way. It's what the state of Illinois requires. They're not great. They're not, it's not like an Evanston Thrives plan or other plans you're used to seeing. So some considerations that we should talk about as a community and ultimately the city council when we're looking at whether or not we keep the TIF going or cancel all of the TIFs or one or several of them is have we attained the goal and the mission? Have we completed the mission of the TIF? And there are, bullets after these that you can review. If we, do we have cash balance in the TIF to support the debt management that we have currently in place? If we close the TIF, then we have to use general fund dollars or whatever TIF balance is left to cover those bond payments or debt. So that's something we have to think about. And then do we have any contracts existing in place with companies that maybe we've invested in? And I don't think there are any at this point, but are there capital improvement plans that we had extended over a period of time that we need to make sure that we're complying with? And then is there an alternative funding source for things that we were planning to do? If we had a conversation that Councilmember Kelly mentioned, hey, if there's something that we're going to use TIF for, instead of using TIF, let's just put it in the CIP or put it in the annual budget. Like we don't have to play the TIF game. Let's just budget for it without the TIF. So that's something arguably could be easier said than done because we get into really serious budget challenges sometimes, and when the TIF is there, that's a buffer to that. But it's a fair suggestion. It's if we're serious about continuing some of these economic development initiatives and we don't want TIF, then let's have a commitment from the city council and hopefully the support of the community, and then city council support to use general fund to support economic development. And then there's a quick summary of each of the TIFs, and I'm not going to go back and forth between but at the back of the report there are, I'm going to do this one time, but each of the TIFs has a fund forecast, and you can take a look at those. And because some of the TIFs have longer life, you're going to have a longer spreadsheet or a stacked spreadsheet. But going back up really briefly, there are a number of projects in each of the TIFs, including Howard Ridge, which has a demolition. We just got bids back yesterday, and I'll be coming to City Council at the second meeting in March to award the contract to demolish the laundromat and the 727, 729 building. Then we'll sell that. The money will come back into the TIF. There's Callan Plaza improvements and some other Evanston Thrives projects that we're funding, but there's only 2 years left. It retires in 2028. I don't think there's a desire to extend it. The state does allow communities to extend it for 12 years with the approval of the state legislature. West Evanston TIF got off to a really slow start. It started in 2006 and started moving forward with there was the federal project whose name I'm forgetting, Councilmember Burns. I'm sorry, I forget the name of it. NSP2. There was a nice housing development, and then the financial crisis hit, and the TIF went into essentially became upside down. It was generating $0 for a period of about 10 years. So not much was done in that TIF, and then as the market improved and there were some administrative fixes we made to the TIF district to allow it to generate some funds, we're now planning to fund the Mason Park expansion. There's a property acquisition we're considering kind of in the center of the TIF, in the center of the second ward. And then there is a long commitment to support the development of the HODC project at the corner of Darrow and Church. So in this case, again, this TIF expires in 29. There are a significant number of projects that are kind of still outlined in that older plan that I think are legitimate, and we could talk about those in a later meeting. But in order for us to really get those projects done, we're going to have to talk about maybe going to Springfield to have the TIF extended. Otherwise, we've done some good things in the TIF, and we move on from there. And the TIF expires in 2029. So those are your two options there. Dempster Dodge is probably the easiest one to think about. Long story short, Dominic's left. We really, in the shopping center, was 30% occupied, and we thought that it was time to transition that property into something else. Like strip malls aren't doing very well, but Valley was able to turn it around, and frankly, there's no real need for the TIF. The TIF has debt service that will extend through the life of the TIF. We have enough cash at the end of next year to pay that debt off, and we could close the TIF, and that's what I would recommend to staff. There isn't kind of another nuanced option where we could just leave it open and just port the money from the Dempster Dodge TIF into the West Evanston TIF and use it that way. I think it'd be good public stewardship to just shut it down and let the schools have the money and just move on from it. We can have that conversation later, but those are your two real options there. And then Chicago Main TIF was created to support the water main and streetscape project, and that's Catherine Gottsick's favorite project now that it's done, yes. And then we also supported the residential development at the southeast corner of Main and Chicago, that Riverside development created. So that TIF is doing very well. We've used TIF funds to support lighting installations and storefront modernization improvements. Have you seen what they did at the post office in Vierig? I always say it wrong. Jewelers. Those are the types of improvements. There's a few more I'd like to see happen, including Shermaine. I will say that, but we'll continue to talk with them. And then there's other projects happening in the TIF that will actually expand, generate a lot of increment. So the question is, do we let it just continue going and expire in 10 years and support projects as they come up? We could terminate it in 2029. There's a couple of projects that we need to finish up, including the Evanston Thrives bridge lighting projects. We're talking about doing a Custer Avenue, like Custer Oasis, kind of permanent, kind of curbless, festoon lights, that kind of thing. Similar to what we're doing in Callan Plaza and Howard Street, but just with a little more, probably a lot more activity on Custer. But those are the types of things that we're trying to support, and we have them budgeted. But we could also, let me just stop there, because I think those are the ones we really should be doing. We've committed to that in Evanston Thrives and as a city council. And then I've put in a really maybe I'll call it like a mind-blowing option, which is let's expand it. Let's expand the TIF a little further east and pull in a couple of parking lots that we could, use to expand our putting assets to work project where we're adding some more residential, but also, a parking facility that supports the neighborhood, the condominiums and the apartment dwellers, along with some of the businesses, because parking can be a challenge there. Again, that's for discussion. For the media that may be watching or paying attention, like that's not anything that we've talked about at the official level. These are ideas. And then finally, the 5/5 TIF, our newest. I encourage you to read Resolution 88R21 if you haven't. This is a very unique TIF designed to support affordable housing development and preservation. The real intention of this TIF was to kind of slow down the changes that are occurring in the Fifth Ward. And I'm saying it my way. There's probably a better way of saying it, but let's continue to support diverse housing options and provide the ability for housing in the Fifth Ward to remain somewhat affordable. And we would use TIF to do that. Typically, we're using TIF to support business district renovations or rejuvenation and, business-oriented support. This is really focused on residential, although there will be some small business support as well. Councilmember Burns chairs the 5/5 TIF Advisory Committee. We meet monthly, and we're in the process now of designing a kind of a TIF framework that we think we could possibly use as a model for all TIFs if we decide to keep some of the TIFs. And then again, please, if you have time, take a look at the fund forecast to see how the balances will change over the years and the various projects that we're funding. So I'll stop there. Sorry for the Finance and Budget Committee members who had to listen to me do that again, but this time it was much quicker. Any questions? Or that's your job.
Yeah. Are there any questions? If they're not, we can move on to the next item.
So I do have.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to kick it off.
So when you say we'll move on to the next. Sorry. So when you say we'll move on to the next item, are we voting on this tonight? What are we doing with this? This is for discussion. Help me understand how we're moving this or not this evening.
The item's just for discussion.
Just for discussion. And as advisory to City Council, we'll go for vote? Is that?
So I think these were referred for discussion for both, right? That's the, or Matt, it's your referral, dude, I guess. Yeah, you tell me.
So it was referred to finance and budget. The first part was, and I think the second part was too, because as chair of finance and budget, I was asked to put it on there as well. This is here really so that you can provide some feedback to finance and budget, who will then make a referral on to city council on the issue ultimately. So this is an opportunity for this body to weigh in, since it does touch TIFs, even though this is at a slightly higher level.
Thank you for that. I guess my question would be, if we allow these to expire, if we end these TIFs, I asked Paul this question earlier. I said, well, what other incentive mechanism do we have? And I think the answer is none, right? And so I'll go back to our work plan, and part of the work plan is to consider incentive tools, in the work of economic development. TIF is clunky. It's not a perfect tool, right? And it's very geographic specific, whether you port it or not. So I'm not saying it's a great tool, but it is a tool. If we allow these to expire, or we end these tools, I personally do not believe that, we can anticipate the market needs that arise for some of these projects that come before TIF in this, in the capital improvement plan, right? Maybe the infrastructure pieces, but business opportunities, market opportunities, that can't be anticipated. It can't be budgeted in the capital improvement plan. I see that if we move aggressively to end these TIFs, that we will not have an incentive structure to be responsive to market opportunities. And so that's a concern to me.
And just to clarify, I think you were looking at me.
I guess I'm looking down the line.
All the council members?
My referral was not to abolish. That was Councilmember Davis who came forward with an abolishing of them. Mine was to look specifically at like Dempster Dodge, where if there is not a series of activity over a period of time, then maybe it needs to be retired. But I am not advocating for let's just wholesale cut TIFs out.
Yeah, and I think that referral goes to finance and budget, right? That's not coming.
They've
so-
kind of been grouped together.
Yeah.
But both will be a finance and budget.
Okay. Councilmember Newsman.
Thank you. Yeah, we talked, I think all the council members on this committee are also on finance and budget, so we don't need to rehash that conversation. What I'd be interested in hearing is from Lisa and other members of this committee, not on council, what's your take on TIFs? Good, bad, how can we do better? Do we need them? That would be useful input from this committee.
Councilmember Kelly.
I agree. But I also think there's more information even for anybody to sort of weigh in to understand like how much we are sweeping basically into TIF funds that would otherwise potentially feed our school districts in our city, of which we could set aside money annually. We could decide what we need to spend money on. It could be more disciplined and targeted spending. I know that many of the TIFs like, okay, we have this money, what should we do with it? We're not in a situation in our city where we should ever be like, looking at a pot of money and trying to figure out. So I do feel like we could be more targeted and disciplined with spending, and I think TIFs oftentimes don't lend themselves to that. That they can. And I think particularly in smaller parcels when we're looking at a TIF. But I think, for example, Paul, can you tell us roughly, so I know the 25 isn't uploaded yet, right? The TIF
Yes,
reports
I
yet.
anticipated you were going to ask this question
Sorry.
tonight.
I
And I have a spreadsheet on my phone that I'll just roughly I'll give you some rough numbers. We have to verify these. So we have 5 TIFs, and if we look at really quickly, so you have the frozen value of the TIF when you create it, and then there's a current value. You subtract those two, that's your increment. So that increment is what we would be adding to our revenue if we levied for it, right? So if we add up all of the TIFs, the city of Evanston would have an additional 1.2 million. That's a real number.
1.2 million? That's the increment of all the taxes we're collecting?
That's the city of Evanston's share of the.
Oh, the city of, no,
Right.
to me, it's all the.
Right, so then District 65 would have an additional 2.9 and District 202, 1.8.
So we're talking about around 5 or 6 million.
1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5 million.
Okay, yeah,
And that's annual.
right. I got from 24, I got somewhere around 6.5, but, so it went down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's about what we're not putting into the tax, but we're
Sure.
between 5 and 7.
That's sitting in a segregated fund that is not used, can only be used in TIF districts.
Okay. So I think it's important to have those numbers too.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll present those at Finance and Budget next week. Yep.
Great, thanks.
Catherine.
I'm very supportive of TIF money. Without TIF, we wouldn't have Button Bakery. We were able to get their request and fund it like without a budget discussion, and it came out of the TIF. If not for the TIF, the Bibb and Tucker building would still be an eyesore that had nothing going on in it. It'd probably be still owned by a not great landlord. Without TIF, there wouldn't be festoon lights that are coming on Main Street. There are so many things that the TIF has been helpful for that is actual investment and not perishable commodities, and makes a real difference to the main Chicago area. I would say not having the TIFs in order to make these incentives and investments would have turned out poorly for main Chicago.
Councilmember Burns.
What's the name of the committee that the district and county all them sent on the TIF thing? What is that called? Joint Review Board. I just want people to know that there's a joint review board, and TIFs don't get created unless there's a vote of that board. And who sits on that board? The other taxing entities, right? So District 5 has a representative, District 202, Cook County, Oakton, I believe, also is represented on that board. And so I just want to be clear that the CFOs and the leadership of all these various taxing entities are well aware about what they're giving up by contributing to this program. That's the point, right? Like, they're all chipping in money over a period of time to say, yep, we want to target investment in this particular area. That's the whole point of the program. So it's not like they're blindsided by it. Like, they're part of the process. There's a vote that happens. That being said, I do think investment needs to be targeted. If you look at the ordinances that create these TIFs, that's where the targeting is supposed to happen. And so if we need to do a better job of kind of talking about how to use TIF funds, then we can do that. I know more about the West Evanston and 5/5 TIF than the others, but like, for example, West Evanston TIF, you can see it in the way it's shaped. The whole point of it was to redevelop the old Mayfair line. There used to be a train line that split through Evanston, went through the 5th Ward, 2nd Wards, and some other wards, and connected with the Weber Spur in Chicago. The whole point was to take this, leftover viaducts or whatever they're called, retaining walls, I don't know what they're called, brownfield sites and vacant land and all of that, and try to bring it up to its most productive use. So if you walk along the Mayfair line, you have to kind of shift around in different parts, but you'll see there's still brownfield sites, there's still vacant land, there's still underutilized site, there's still all of that exists there, mostly because of what Paul said, that there was this slow start. 5/5 TIF, again, the whole point of that, no other TIF in Evanston, and I would say even in most of Chicago, and Paul can correct me if I'm wrong, included as many residential parcels as the 5/5 TIF. The whole point of it was to say, instead of just saying we want affordable housing, we need the funding to do it, to create new affordable housing in this town. And so for the first time in Evanston, it was a TIF that included more residential parcels. And so that's the whole point of the TIF, is to do home rehab grants, to build new affordable units, and then also to support the small businesses that are there. Going back to targeting, though, I don't necessarily think that some of those other community benefit projects that support communities are necessarily the point of TIF. They can be once they're created, but I couldn't sit here and look you in the eye and say, I don't think the point of TIF was to support, I don't even want to name it, but there are some things that produce more increment. The whole point is but for TIF, we wouldn't be generating as much tax increment or taxes in that area after the 23-year period. There are obviously things that don't necessarily help towards that. I don't think those are that's the reason why you create a TIF. And so to me, that's the way I'm looking at it. The core purpose should be, we're trying to generate more tax increment, more taxes. If there's a TIF that no longer has an eye towards that, those are the ones that I think are worth looking at dissolving. I think Dempster and Dodge is probably the best example, and I don't know enough about the others. But main thing I just wanted to say is the taxing entities, they're a part of the process. And, to an earlier point, I just want people to understand is that if we did not have these funds, we would be entirely relying on our own budget as a city. And we've already shown that is not sufficient. And so there's so much that we're not going to be able to do if we don't find another way to fund these different things that we want to do. Thank you.
Cindy.
Thanks. Good afternoon. This is my first time in a long time attending this committee, and I'm now doing so as a special service area manager alongside Catherine and our other colleagues. But I wanted to echo a lot of what she said about TIF as a tool for targeted investment in some of these corridors that we know need that investment and maybe aren't as able to compete in a larger, in the context of a larger capital plan or city budget. One of the things that I hear consistently in my communities that I work in on both sides of Howard Street, and particularly from the Chicago side, is they look across at Evanston and the projects the city of Evanston has been able to do using the Howard Ridge TIF and say, why can't we do that? How do we get a TIF? People see the successes that are happening, and Dempster Dodge being another wonderful example of TIF really working well. I understand a lot of the concerns and criticism about TIFs generally. We see the city of Chicago moving away from that strategy for economic development. And in my experience working in a business service organization and neighborhood development in Chicago is that now means that every neighborhood has to compete with every other neighborhood for limited funding, rather than having those sort of targeted areas with specific projects in mind to fund. We still have special service areas, but those are much smaller, pots of money to fund things. And they were hit especially hard this year by the delay in property tax collections that we're still climbing out of a hole. I know the school districts are as well. But basically, TIF allows for projects that really don't get funded otherwise. And Howard Street, I think, has been a solid example of that over the last 10 plus years that I've been working on both sides of the street.
Thank you. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to acknowledge many great projects that have come out of TIFs, on Howard especially, I'm a huge advocate of investing in our small businesses. So I think like our storefront modernization grants and all these things also help to increase the tax base. And so I'm just not sold yet that is the method we need to invest in areas that we want to invest in. I think I agree. Like, I don't know that Button Bakery, if there's any reason we could not have a significant small business pot that we allocate and we invest in small businesses. I'm not, like I say, 100% convinced that. I am convinced that many great projects have come out of TIF, but that it's not necessarily TIF. We needed to have TIF in order to invest in those. So I think that's
Catherine.
it. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one quick comment that I have a lot of empty spaces that if the landlords had the money to invest in turning it into food service ready places, they would be able to fill their spaces quicker. And so if they're in the TIF district, I always say check in with your alderman and see if this is an option. But as retail kind of dwindles a little bit and we have to find creative spaces for retail, I think helping to find some good places to invest in food service, curated, not willy-nilly, but that is a good use, I think.
All right, anything further from anybody? Otherwise, we can move on to our next discussion item, which is 2-hour free business district parking. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move item 7B, a discussion on 2-hour free business district parking.
Second? Does anybody want to second it so we can talk about it?
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Perfect. All right. I don't know if do you have a presentation or do you want to?
Well, I don't have a presentation. I just want to point out in the staff report, I've outlined a number of considerations for just kind of frame a discussion. And if you spend a little time with it, you'll see that we're asking that if there is a recommendation to proceed with this policy, that it goes to the referrals committee. That is just the formal way of doing that, because it will have significant budget impacts, both financially and from a staff perspective. But I think we can just open up for discussion. I think the staff report is a way to kind of start and use it as a framing.
Okay, and I guess I'll level set. We have some experience with doing this on a short-term basis. There was a public comment, and there are other alternative potential uses. So I guess the question becomes, and this is where the business district members are useful, is the sweetener of 2-hour free parking worth exploring? Like, is there enough potential economic impact to offset the loss of revenue? And with that, I'll just open it up. Angela.
Thank you. I wanted to just mention that when we recently had all of our construction, we had, the 2-hour free parking. And I know Council Member Davis put out a survey, and I had her add the question of, how has the 2-hour parking impacted your business? So I would be really curious to see what came out of those survey results, just from a business perspective, and how many people answered that question. So I don't know if that survey is out there somewhere, but that might give us some insight into just how businesses are feeling about, giving the district 2-hour free parking if they felt that it helped their business or, I would be curious to see what came of that.
All right, and I feel like, I'll just take a little time here. I mean, part of it is, for some businesses, 2-hour free parking would be, like, hits their sweet spot. For other businesses, and like Cheryl, use yours, I mean, really, it's more 15-minute, right? Like, I mean, the discussion here is about 2-hour free parking, but I guess, like, the larger issue is, like, are there modes of parking incentives that are more appropriate for particular blocks or in front of businesses? I'd be curious too. Did she send that out as like a two businesses survey that we would expect to have meaningful response, or was it like just a newsletter?
Yeah. She, I'll try to find the email and I can send it to you. She did send it out because we started to get questions. I know when we were changing some of the zoning around the neighborhoods and the residents and the parking, all of the zoning around the stadium. I think she wanted to get a sense for where people were at with that whole situation, because I know it was a sticky wicket. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because like, they're not asking for anything, but I'll just use Noise Street Barbershop as an example. They would benefit less from 2-hour free parking and more from like a haircut's worth of time from free parking, right? Like we talked about, short pickup food service is different than what Borough might need. Or so I mean, it's probably more complicated than just 2 hours, but that's what the discussion is here. I don't know which order these lights came on in, or
Can I jump in?
yeah.
Okay, I know I'm jumping out of line here, but I want to frame something really quickly. The reason that if you haven't read the staff report, that's okay. But the reason the 2-hour concept came up is because neighboring communities to the north, in the North Shore, have that form of parking. You roll up into their village center, and you have the ability to park. They mark your tire, and if you're still there 2 hours later, you get a ticket. That's the idea. So you can roll up to Noise Barbershop, which you may have noticed I was there today, but I walked. But you can go there, and if it's 20 minutes for the haircut, and you move on, right? But the enforcement mechanism in Evanston would be, we have the tools in place. We have the license plate reader. We're used to that as a community. And we're going up and down the street, and if you're there for more than 2 hours, you get a ticket. Or there was this other idea, you get a 2+1, where you get to extend it an hour and you pay. But the real point is, how do we compete? Because what we're hearing from some people is, hey, it's much easier to drive to the North Shore and park and run in it. And that's the friction point where the argument is, if we had free parking, we'd have much more economic activity because people wouldn't be afraid to park here, or they don't want to spend the $2 for 2 hours of parking. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be 2 hours. The idea is that's what our competitors are doing. But if you look at the maps and the different zones that Wilmette has, for example, they have a range, right? They have some 30 minutes, they have 2 hours. It just depends. I hope that helps.
All right. Mr. Vick?
I guess first of all, I want to say thank you to Paul for putting together the memo. I think it outlined some really important points to be considered. One of the things that I would love to know is, we've piloted these holiday discounted parking and the first Saturday discounted parking. I have never seen the results, the data that says we gave away this much money, but we generated this much extra tax revenue. I don't know whether those numbers are available, but it seems to me like we've intentionally piloted a couple things. Can we see the data that shows us whether this has had an economic impact in a positive way, or did we just lose money by giving away paid parking? So that's one thing. The other thing is,
Sorry, can I jump in real quick? Or, yeah, you're rolling. But can I just jump in real quick? We did holidays, and we also do like first
Saturday.
First Saturdays, and that was what time of year?
First Saturday started, I want to guess and say about April last year and
Okay.
ran through the end of this year, and I don't think it's continuing currently into 26.
I just wonder, because holiday might be juiced by the fact that it's holiday. So,
Well-
I mean, it's information that's not in here, but you know, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if the question comes down to like, are we making a wise financial decision by modifying parking in some way to theoretically get more business activity? Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
I guess I just feel like sometimes we are held hostage by the community in some ways, that paid parking is this horrible evil. People go to Chicago and pay twice or three times as much money to park in front of wherever they're parking. The problem is not the paid parking. The problem is, let's create a destination that people want to go to. And if it's something and they want to do or a place they want to go, I'll speak for myself. I'm happy to pay $2 or $4 or whatever, because I'm going for the experience. And I feel like in some ways we're fueling this constant dialogue about parking that this community seems to be super hung up on. Yes, we're different than what happens in the northern or the next northern suburbs, but we're different than them. We are this composite of a urban and a suburban. And so we're going to be different, and I don't think we should feel compelled to bow to this constant demand or this constant feeling that paid parking is a sin. It's not. All we have to do, because we need the turnover, as was said in public comment, all we need to do is create the destination that people want to be at, and they will pay the parking because they want to be there. So I guess I'm just cautioning that let's not get too tied up into this without understanding the data and without acknowledging that paid parking is a necessity if you want to keep people moving and create turnover and create opportunities for the next person to come and do their shopping.
Katie, or I assume you're paying attention here, and can I presume to summarize yours? Would paid parking capture, or would free parking capture people who are claiming that paid parking is their obstacle to coming to downtown Evanston? Or coming to the business districts, right? Like there are people who say that's the reason they don't. Would free parking change that, or would they continue to say they don't? Right? I mean, is that what?
Yeah,
one of the
my
things you're
belief
saying?
is that the same person who's saying, I'm not going to downtown Evanston because of paid parking, is the same person that's going into Chicago and paying twice as much to park down there and go somewhere there.
So like, would it be a wise investment of a number, which we don't necessarily have, but that's your second thing, is that we need the data to look at exactly what we would be giving up in terms of parking revenue relative to other revenue?
Yeah, and I think just by virtue of the fact that we participate in these trials or pilots, I've never seen the data.
Okay.
How did we do? What did it yield? Was it worthwhile? So I think we need that as a baseline before we can even have a really substantive conversation about the economic value of it.
Okay, got it. I guess Cindy, your law.
Hi. My thoughts on the free parking, particularly as I was reading the staff memo when it was sent out, is that I have concerns about a one-size-fits-all approach for all of our business districts, particularly having most of my work on Howard Street, where one side of the street is Evanston and one side is Chicago, and there's already like different parking rules on each side of the street. So to add an additional layer to that, I think just lends itself to chaos. And the biggest need I see for parking on Howard Street in particular is around evenings, particularly weekend evenings, because it's people going to dinner, going to the shows, and that's when we have really a challenge with parking capacity, not so much parking being paid or unpaid. To the data point that Mr. Vick brought up, I agree that, I'd like to see, more of the data on the holiday promotions. And that also brought to mind for me how I have no idea if they still do this, but for many years, the movie theater downtown, you'd punch your ticket and get it validated for several hours in the garage. I don't know if that still goes on, but I'd be interested in seeing data from that. Maybe something more like a validation program where parking time is directly tied to sales at businesses. Could kind of solve that problem, because I agree with everything you're saying. As someone with a background in urban planning, like the high cost of free parking is a book that we've all been talking about for years, and trying to sort of really look at how we're utilizing curb space and transportation in our communities. So yeah, I agree. Paid parking is not evil, and a city with the density that of the sort that we have, it's a necessity to prevent people from, camping out all day, because you need turnover.
And can I jump in? And this is really a Mike Rivera question, but I don't believe the choice would be between parking all day without an enforcement mechanism and paid parking. I mean, we have ways to monitor. I mean, I'm just saying, I get what you're saying, but I think part of this discussion is probably also like figuring out how to best utilize the information and technology we have in our parking enforcement to encourage people to come to Evanston. And so I don't know the choice between no turnover. I mean, you get what I'm saying. All right, Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm certainly willing to have this conversation, and right. So I'm glad we are having this conversation. But I am going to be skeptical about giving parking away for free. I'm glad people have mentioned this book, The High Cost of Free Parking. I'm reading another book at the moment, Paved Paradise: How Parking Explains the World. This book's summary of the other book is encapsulated in this one sentence: there is too much parking and it's too cheap. And it's cheap to the driver, it's cheap to the car, but it's not cheap to society, it's not cheap to the city. It costs us money to maintain garages, it costs us money to maintain the streets, it costs us money to enforce the parking rules. And in most cases, drivers are paying only a fraction of that cost, if at all. So I'm going to be very skeptical about giving too much parking away for free, but Councilmember Suffren is suggesting there might be a sweet spot here where we can do something like dynamic demand-based parking fees, which would not be a one-size-fits-all. So I want to make sure we're thinking creatively and not just reacting impulsively.
Yeah, if I just jump in again, I mean, to your point, we're not just giving away the parking. I mean, the presumption is the parker is going to have some further economic impacts. And the question becomes like, would that have not happened without the parking incentive? Would that have, I mean, the circulator bus is a good idea. We've kind of looked into what that might look like, but I mean, like, how do you get people into the businesses? I mean, if you want to use TIF money to turn them into food service, people need to show up there somehow. And, so this is one piece of a larger
yeah, and I think there's street parking and there's garage parking and there's parking lot parking, and those are three different things, and maybe three different approaches or 2.5 different approaches.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just trying to steer the conversation there's also just the perception issue when people are making a choice about where to go, whether Evanston is a convenient option compared to other communities, which aren't apples to apples comparisons.
Having this conversation.
I mean,
I do want to take a look at the data that is available and see if any conclusions can be drawn from that. Let's also point out that Sundays have been and will continue to be free everywhere in town. So there's that.
All right, Councilmember Rodgers.
Yeah, I just want to respond to a couple things. Number one, kind of reiterating the fact again that different parts of town have different needs. One of the things we did see in the research we did for the comp plan was people did want parking near events, commercial areas, things like that. That was a request that we got as part of that feedback. And I think it's very different, not to pick on downtown for a minute, but there's many more parking options downtown than there are on Howard Street. Especially since we also have the overlay of being an Evanston only after 6 p.m. district. And that was put in place because people from Chicago were parking in Evanston to avoid paying their wheel tax. And so there was no parking in our neighborhoods, so we kind of had to do that, which is great. You know, Councilmember Newsom, Councilmember Sufford, and you want to come down to Howard Street, I encourage you to do that. You can park on the side streets. I'm not going to pick on you, Ms. Plant, because I do believe you live in Chicago. She cannot park on my block without getting a parking permit from somebody in the neighborhood. So I think it does create very different dynamics, different places. And as we try to grow Howard Street into being a destination spot, one of the greatest challenges that we're going to face is parking, period, whether it's free, paid, or anything else. It's very limited parking along Howard Street. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Again, I think the data would help us make decisions as the city, but I also think this is not a one-size-fits-all. You know, I can't speak to, I imagine Chicago, Dempster, Maine is a little bit different because they don't have the Evanston overlay on it. But again, they're still faced with not having that parking garage that downtown benefits from. So as we try to grow these business districts, parking has to be a part of that, and figuring out how to make that parking works has to be a part of it as well.
I want to set an expectation on data collection. So the one challenge with sales tax data is it's reported like 90 to 120 days afterwards, and it's not real time. So we don't know. Like ideally, we would be able to like download data from a point of sale system to know when that sale occurred. We'll never really be able to tell like if on Friday the 13th at 7 to 9 if sales increased. And I think maybe the best way we could do that is to use our special service area directors to maybe
I was going to say maybe it's
survey
anecdotal,
or check
you know.
in. Yeah. But I do want to set that expectation. We can definitely find out the impacts to the parking system and how much revenue we lost, but there's no real way of comparing it to what sales tax was generated. What? So the Placer.ai was recommended on the and that would that could show increased visitation, which is a good would be you would think would translate to increased dollars. So we could do that.
All right, Angela.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know I sent you that survey, so you have it. I was just jotting down a few notes. I actually live in Highland Park, so I can talk about the free parking there. Everyone still complains about the free parking all the time because if they don't have the Rockstar spot, then it doesn't matter. There are free parking garages. There's so much free parking in Highland Park. So I think that, says a lot about, going to what Andy was saying, is it really about, we want to create this experience that, people want to come to no matter what. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that one of the things we are challenged with on Central Street, and I don't know how it is in the other districts, but employee parking. So Highland Park obviously has, more parking areas where they have an E-lot for employees, but on Central Street, I know it's become quite a hassle, especially on the east end for employees to find parking. And so I think one of the challenges, and I'm going to speak to Wilmette now. The owner of Heroines and Heroes, who came from Wilmette, says it's free there, but he prefers Central Street. He says the parking is actually better on Central Street because the employees aren't parking in front of his store all day long. So I think, maybe that's something to think about, do we create another area where maybe we can open up some spots for employees and have like an E-lot? And then the other thing I was thinking, I wonder if maybe for events that we have, maybe for special occasions, we offer free parking for 2 hours, or I don't know. I'm just trying to think of different scenarios because we do have the free parking for the holidays. So I don't know. That's just my little brainstorm right now.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Burns.
Sorry, I didn't know I was next. Let me
You don't have to
pull
be.
up my
We
name.
can-
I got to leave, actually, so I appreciate that if it fell to me. So, where is it at? I'm going to have to go off the top because I can't see where it is. First thing I just want to say is we'd like to see the data as well. We tried out some things, and I remember bringing up Placer AI because understanding how to measure success is always important to me. And so I remember at the time bringing up Placer AI. So hopefully when that comes back to us, we have that visitation data available. What I'll start off saying is that, you know, a lot of this stuff is anecdotal. That's what makes it most frustration is because people come up, they're trying to give us a sense of their experience. And then obviously as kind of policymakers, legislators, we're trying to like look at the whole system. And so we're trying to understand like, how do people as a whole feel? How does the whole community feel? What are they experiencing? How are they interacting with parking? Is it, discouraging or encouraging decisions that they're making? So it's always hard when you're just getting data from, one person at a time. I will say, I think I hear about parking a little too much that makes me feel like we need to do something. Now, I don't know if it's free 2-hour parking everywhere, but it pretty much comes up in every conversation I have about like people's experiences downtown in particular. And to me, that does signal that there's some issue. Now, I don't know if it's people don't know how to get to the parking garages. I've mentioned that before, that I wanted us to look at more wayfinding to help people, navigate how to get there, or if it's whatever it is. I'm not sure what it is, but I do hear it enough to where I think we need to probably do something different. And I have one idea, maybe we're doing already, but I'll share in a second. Next thing is I think Paul talked a little bit about this, but when we do the data, I don't necessarily, I would like parking, the parking revenue we get from like the penalties to be separated out, because I don't think that's why we have parking regulations, right? Like we do it for parking turnover, we do it to maintain both parking and road infrastructure. But I want to do that with money that we just collect for, if we're going to do it, like we should get that from people who are just paying to park, not necessarily like penalizing people to park. So I think that's a separate amount that I don't want to get mixed up with just the amount to pay for parking. I think parking turnover can be also achieved by 2-hour parking, 15-minute parking, so I don't want that to get lost. I think the difference is it's probably harder to enforce. And again, that's probably a Marco Rivera question, but probably much easier to enforce when you just have to know whether a car paid or not. How do you know whether or not they stayed a little longer than 2 hours? Maybe there's technology that can do that, but I think it's probably a little bit harder to enforce the 2-hour parking. But I think being fair, that is a way that you still can address parking turnover. I absolutely think, and this is something that I've said a bunch, that I think the main thing is people go where there's something. If there's something there that interests them, they'll pay. They'll do whatever you want them to do to get there or to be there. And I absolutely believe that. Like I don't, and so what I don't want us to take our eye off of is just, as somebody said, making downtown or wherever more of a destination location, and not only tailoring like for downtown, for example. I've always felt like we've kind of exclusively tailored, at least it's felt like sometimes, to the Northwestern students instead of all of Evanston. One example I'll give you is the trampoline park. Like there was very few things for families with little children to do downtown Evanston. I know because I have a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and 13-year-old. And so the trampoline park at the theater has been a game changer for us. We're down there more because that's there. And so what can we do to like put more stuff like that down there? I'm not thinking about parking. I'm just thinking like I got some wild kids in the crib, and if I can get them outside of the house running around, bedtime is going to be easier, right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking about that little $2 or whatever it costs to pay. So I do think, again, if we can get more things down anywhere that are exciting to people, that like address real needs, that parking becomes less of an issue. And last thing I want to say, I don't know if we're doing this already, is the inconvenience of parking to me personally is more that I have to pay every time I go down there, and maybe I don't. So is there like an iPass version that we have in Evanston where I can just pay for a month and I can just pull up and park in a metered area? Is that a thing? And if not, I would do that, because to me, that's where the inconvenience is.
Yeah.
And I mean on-street parking and not necessarily garage parking.
And again, Mr. Rivera is available. We've talked about various things like that. Prepaid parking, when you register, when you pay your wheel tax, paying 120% of what you paid the previous year in parking, and all up front, and like then now you're making a bet that you're gonna, I mean, like there's options I think available, but he's the more appropriate person to answer that. And the other thing is like I just think parking, whether it's the data will show it, is just a perceived source of friction for people in Evanston. To your point, I mean, you'll get complaints about it, and then if there's free parking, you'll get complaints about that. Yeah. Like, how do we remove that as a potential barrier for people making the calculation that coming to Evanston or staying in Evanston is worth it when they're looking at places to dine or places to be or events to attend? So, all right. Council member, or Cheryl, you haven't talked yet. Go ahead. But you need to turn on your light in the future. Yeah, that's okay.
I find it, probably it's because I'm the dinosaur on the council here, on the committee, that we are having a discussion about business and parking, and there's never been one mention of Old Orchard. I'm just like virtually all the years I've lived here in Evanston, when people talk about going downtown, oh, there's no place to park, maybe we can do it over at Old Orchard. I think this issue of 2-hour parking is probably most salient for the restaurant community, particularly those that have sit-down restaurants, because in your mind, if you have 2 hours to dine, frankly, that's enough time, and also the business owner is not going to want someone keeping spaces out right around in front of his business for longer than 2 hours because he's looking to have turnover. But when you had Old Orchard, where they have a plethora of restaurants, there's this huge space, people, oh, let's go there, it's easy to park, we don't have to pay. And that was just something that it's talked about so much. I know we're in the business of really looking at what other cities are doing, but Old Orchard for a long time functioned as its own little business entity that most people around here that for many, many years always said, is it easier to do at Old Orchard or something like that? So I just caution you to consider, other avenues, not just what's going on in smaller Wilmette and Highland Park, dare I say it. But there, again, look at it from a broader perspective, but limit it really to certain kinds of businesses, because 2 hours is ample for most other things, maybe other than special occasion restaurant visit.
Okay. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. I think it would be really great if we could think of all the sort of type of questions that we could survey residents on. I think there is, to Bobby's point, a lot of it, I think, could be convenience too, just like if we could pay up front, I know myself, it's just a hassle to get out and find the number, and I forget often, and how much of it is due to the high cost of the fines, overzealous parking, where people are like, I don't want to go down there, I got a $75 fine last time. So, just to find out really what is the biggest trigger in terms of what makes people upset about parking here. And I think ultimately, we really want it to align what we do with how people actually use downtown. I know we'd all like them to ride bikes, we'd like them to walk, we'd like them to use public transportation, but we can't, be the nanny state. We got to look at how they're really using it. And ultimately, it's about supporting our small businesses and really saying, that impact. And I think we can't look at the one Saturday a month. That's not going to give us data, because I don't think I even ever remembered when that day was. And so Central Street, I'm not sure, how long has that been free? If that's a good measure, has that been?
We're not free anymore.
Okay.
It was just during the construction.
Okay.
So it was but I think it was a really interesting time for us to test, the waters a little bit and see, how people felt about it.
Right. So, but it was a year worth?
let's see, we started the project in March of last year, and then, it was through October of last year. So, I want to say it was either March or May through October.
Okay.
So a good amount of time.
Yeah, to be able to look at the results. And the same with, I think, the holiday parking. I don't know if people receive feedback, just anecdotal feedback. I generally get really positive feedback, people like, but I don't know what the overall impact is economically. So anyway, I think it would be worth looking at a survey and sort of brainstorming on the questions and really doing our best through all of the wards to get that out and get feedback as to why people hate the parking in Evanston. And even for small errands, I know like the 2 hours, but I know people on the north end frequently will just go to the hardware store in Wilmette because they can zip in and zip out, and sometimes anyway, I hear it all the time that people head north just to make it easier for an errand.
Shout out to Harold's Hardware on Central Street. Catherine, is that you?
Yeah, so I would very strongly echo the idea of addressing employee parking. And also on Main Street, there's 2 train stations. There's a Metro and a CTA, and a risk for commuters to stay all day. So we don't want to do that. But parking is 100% the thing that people talk to me about all the time. And I sometimes wonder if a gesture would help, and then I wonder if it wouldn't. So I'm of 2 minds on this. I do think you could use free parking to drive on not busy nights. So if it was like free parking on Tuesdays, you would probably find more people going someplace on Tuesdays. But I don't think you're ever going to get rid of all the complaints about parking. Like there is absolutely, you cannot please all of the people all of the time on this issue. So I would not try to do that. But I think there are ways to use it that would be incentivizing. Also, I do believe that holiday parking is, I think that's a real thing that you should invest in. If you're going to make an investment in parking, if you're going to lose some revenue in parking, the holidays certainly would make a difference on Main Dumpster Mile.
Yeah, and I will say in my time on council, it's always struck me that the larger conversation is that parking isn't a disincentive to people shopping in Evanston. And then at the holidays, when we want to encourage people to shop in Evanston, we give away free parking. So we know there's there's a friction there. What the right mix of revenue, enforcement, overall vibe that it creates. I think that part of it's just to your point, the people are less upset about having to pay whatever they have to pay up front for parking than they are for getting a $75 ticket they didn't expect. And that, depending on if you're a visitor who, I have no way to verify this, but the email of I will never come to Evanston again email, you get that. So, there's a perception issue too. How do we balance out the needs for turnover and enforcement and revenue with creating an overall welcoming and friendly, incentivizing climate for people to come spend money?
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Is that one thing that I hear a ton of complaints about as well is the 35-cent charge in the Park Evanston app, especially if somebody's just jumping in for coffee. They're like, I'm paying, 25 cents for parking and 35 cents convenience fee. So there's that is also something that if it could be taken care of, that would be
So I'll just jump in and respond to that because I run a park mobile site. That is how the parking companies make their money, is off that 35 cents. I don't pay the parking company that regulates the parking in the lot I manage at all. That 35 cents
Right.
is all they're getting per
Totally
transaction.
understand that. There was a time when we first started doing Park Evanston that I believe you put money in your wallet and it forgave your fee. And so I'm not sure if that still is or isn't, but I do recall there was a time when the fee went away and that was a good thing.
So yeah, it is supposed to be that way, but it doesn't always work. I know that's true because I've had a lot of people complain, and I've called Ms. Director Rivera. It is supposed to still be that way, but there is, I think, some glitches that need to be fixed. in that, so.
All right, Councilmember, are you done, Catherine? Okay, Councilmember Kelly. Your light's on. Okay, and I mean, that also like ties into the people feeling nickeled or quartered and dimed in this case. I mean, like having it be like upfront and clear, and for frequent visitors or residents, the app is a great thing, but for people who are one-off visitors, it's kind of a pain. Like, so and I guess with no more lights on,
I just remembered.
Oh, dang it. All right, with one more light on.
So, I'm sorry, I just remembered. I did about the nickel and dime thing. I think it's also, this thing where you have to get out your app and then you get high fines and paying, but then it's also everything. Like you say, we have the highest liquor tax. We have it's expensive. I've gotten the, emails from people saying I paid this, this, and this to have dinner tonight in Evanston. I'm never coming back. And they list everything, including parking. So maybe it's it's parking, but maybe we have to really take a look at all of our taxes.
Okay. All right, cool. So like put a bow on it. We've had this discussion. There's some data collection or aggregation that needs to happen. This conversation will continue, probably culminating in something around budget time. If there's a need for this to come back here or the more focused way, we can do that. I think obviously Mr. Rivera is an essential part of the conversation as well. I would anticipate that there would be a subsequent referral that would go to Administration of Public Works if we were going to try and formalize some changes to policies, enforcement, fees, et cetera. With that, is there anything that anybody didn't say that kind of falls under the economic development piece of the larger policy issue that they want to get in before we close this thing out? And you can also obviously, email works. But like, if anybody's got anything to say, I guess Claire Kelly does.
Really quick. So we did not allocate this year. I don't know if Paul, if you can address that, like the funding that we have to support small businesses this year, we just didn't, or, I mean, what's the status of that? Because I feel like, I'm not sure why, and I don't remember discussion at council about it, so I don't think we cut it out, but it just wasn't.
Sure. So we have very limited dollars this year. And I've heard this from a number of council members. It was all in the budget discussion. I don't think it was highlighted enough for some of you to see and discuss it. But the money was just basically like recategorized. Instead of having the Great Merchant Grant, we're funding the things that the Great Merchant Grant always pays for, which is typically like holiday decor, that kind of thing. So our budget this year is somewhere in the range, and I'm looking at my team, is like 400,000 minus 100,000 for the pop-up program, so 300. But all of that is really allocated to programs that, like, there's no storefront grant. There's 25,000 for legacy.
I mean, what do we have for small businesses this year?
Zero.
Yeah.
To invest in an
whether it's
individual
storefront
business.
or,
Outside of a TIF, we have $0.
$0. Okay.
And last year we didn't have much either. I mean, last year was maybe 50. It was 50,000.
There were sustainability grants for a while too.
And pardon me, we do. Sustain Evanston has a total of 250 or 300? 300,000.
300,000 for small businesses located in Evanston.
Do you want to take the mic quick? Just really quick. It's important to hear this detail.
So the sustainability grant this year is going to be limited to waste projects and buildings that are part of the Healthy Buildings Ordinance. So either an owner of those commercial buildings or any business located within a covered building will be eligible.
And when was that decided? That's all.
That was because we did not contribute. We were not able to contribute to that. So they changed it. Also, they lost a lot of federal funding that was going to support that. And so that became the focus for the sustainability team.
Okay, so I think that kind of hurts a little bit for us not to have funds to support our local small businesses.
Right, we need to have this
discussion. That it's only for,
so we need to have this discussion for 2027 budget. The other challenge is we spent a lot of time on work planning, and we never had a deep dive budget discussion because we hadn't determined what our work plan was going to be, and that's the result of that process. But we'll begin the 27 process in something like 90 days.
Okay. I just think every year supporting small businesses feels like an annual chunky budget line. And then I'd also, with parking, it seems like we might want to consider maybe a town hall, just to hear people about, it would be easier than waiting for surveys and wondering who feels fit to really announce a town hall here, maybe for Economic Development Committee. Just a thought. That's all.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, let's
Second.
see y'all later.